everyone's like, who wants to tell him? I don't know. He doesn't seem like he's in a good mood today. I don't want to tell him. You go tell him, right? We'll tell him later. Hi, my name's Devon. Today I own several multi-million-dollar companies. We started with $5,000 in a credit card. I don't know the easy way. I only know the hard way. Hey everybody, welcome to the Whiteboard Entrepreneur, where I give straightforward advice for the entrepreneur in all of us. I'm Devon Dickinson. Today I want to talk to you about how there is no bad news. It's just news. And I get this from the incredible movie, business movie. If you haven't seen it, you're going to have to watch it. Incredible business movie, Kung Fu Panda. And I joke, but there's a quote in there when Shifu, the Kung Fu master, someone comes running up to him and they're like, Shifu, have you heard the news? It's terrible. And he goes, whoa. There is no bad news, only news. And then, the funny part of the movie, he tells him the news. And he goes, oh, wow, that is bad news. But I quote this all the time. There is no bad news. There's only news. And so in business, I cannot stress to you enough how important this is, that you kind of understand this and grasp it and then apply it to your business. Because as entrepreneurs, every day, it's a bit of an emotional roller coaster, right? And what happens is, there's the highs, there's the lows, there's the ups, there's the down, there's the wins, the losses. And it becomes such an emotional roller coaster that we begin to try to avoid the bad news of business, right? Like everyone's like, who wants to tell him? I don't know. He doesn't seem like he's in a good mood today. I don't want to tell him. You go tell him, right? We'll tell him later, right? And what happens is, and I'm sure you've had these discussions and seen this in your company, right? Where people are like, I'll save that news for later because it's bad news. Well, what I would tell you is if you as an entrepreneur are avoiding the bad news of your company and the bad news of the situations or whatever the quote unquote bad news of the day is, you're missing opportunities to grow, to react, and to change. Because the fact of the matter is, if you lost the customer, is that bad news? Yeah, it's not good, right? But it's just news. It's a fact. You lost a customer. You can get depressed. You can, pout. You can get mad. You can get angry. Or you can receive that news, analyze it, figure out how to get better, and change, right? If the market changes, if a new competitor comes out with a new product that directly competes with what you have, is that great news? No, you're not excited to hear that, but you need to know about it, right? And I always say, like, guys, we cannot be ostriches, right? So if you're aware of what an ostrich does, an ostrich, when they get scared, they stick their head in the sand. That's what an ostrich does, right? So when an ostrich hears bad news, they go, whoop, put their head in the sand. We cannot, as entrepreneurs, do that, right? We cannot want to hear bad news so bad that it makes us go and put our head in the sand. And I'd rather not know about it, right? Well, that's not true. We need to know about the news. And so I invite that. I want to have, people talk about, I have an open door policy, blah, blah, blah. Well, most people have an open door policy so people can come in and brag about how great things are going. But you need to have an open door policy so that people bring you the bad news. And you need to be someone that's willing to receive that and have a air about you and an aura about you that welcomes that. Like, bring it to me. I can tell you a story. One time when I went back, there was a company, it was in trouble. They brought me in. I had to go and kind of run it as a, literally overnight decision. Boom. The first thing I did is I said, okay, I wiped out the entire office. I took everything out of the office and I sent somebody down to Home Depot and they bought a bunch of, it was like shower board, and we we screwed it up all against the walls, right? And so literally my entire wall just became a makeshift giant whiteboard, but it was like 4 different columns, right? And I brought every single person in and I said, tell me everything that's wrong. Tell me all the garbage. Give me everything, all the bad news. Tell me what customers we lost. Tell me what vendors we're behind on. Tell me where all the skeletons are buried. I want to know everything. And people are like, oh, really? And so they'd test me. They'd say, well, this isn't going so good. And I'm like, okay. And I'd run up and I'd write on a whiteboard and I'd say, tell me something else, right? And they were like, oh, wait. you're excited to hear the bad news? I'm like, yes, I have to know every single bit of dirt, every single lawsuit, every single thing that's going on. I have to know it. Tell me. And all of a sudden they're like, well, I can tell you this sucks. That's wrong. We lost this. We're in that lawsuit. We're behind it with this vendor and da-da-da-da-da-da. And then we got excited about the bad news, because once you kind of bring the bad news up and you put it on that whiteboard and we started to put it down, all of a sudden we began to understand the magnitude of what we were dealing with, and we could start to create an action plan. And I kept telling them, guys, there is no bad news. It's just news. Bring it to me and then we'll deal with it. And once I started to have this type of an attitude, people became, not only with bad news, but they say, hey, I've got some bad news, but I also have an idea on how we can deal with it. Right? Instead of like this avoidance, like, oh, let's just not talk about it. Let's ignore the problems. Let's put it away. Like, no, I want to bring the bad news. Now, we wouldn't celebrate the idea that this was garbage, right? But we weren't afraid of it either, right? Because it's just news. It's just facts. We lost a customer. That's a fact. Okay, what are we going to do about it? That we can control, right? So we started putting things on these whiteboards, right? We had like 4 different columns, and then we would we organized it like worst, like biggest issues to moderate issues, and then the magnitude of the issue, which ones we could handle now. And literally it became so satisfying, because every day we'd like, boom, took care of that. Boom, took care of that. Oh, this one still exists. It's a big one, but we're going to come back to it after we solve this problem. We can solve that problem, right? And we became excited about the bad news because we could deal with it. And then within those bad news, there was always an opportunity, right? It's like, well, listen, we call up this vendor like, hey, we owe you a bunch of money, right? I'm telling you, I'm new here. I'm taking this thing over. Hey, I can either not pay the bill or I can pay the bill, and we'll figure out a way to pay the bill. And let's also figure out a way to grow the relationship, right? And instead of ignoring it and just not paying the bill, not calling the vendor, not dealing with the bad news, we turn that into a actual relationship, right? Now that vendor's like, well, you know what? I got no money from you anyway, so I might as well give you terms. And if I'm going to give you terms, hey, we have this new product. Maybe if you sell that, that'll help you pay some of these bills. Now you're going to have to pay us up front for that because we don't trust you because your company's screwed up in the past. But all of a sudden this opportunity came. This relationship was built, right? And, we lost a customer, but all of a sudden we figured out why we lost that customer so we could keep from losing other customers. And then we figured out what we did wrong. And so now we found an opportunity. Hey, what if we reposition this way and we can go and hit this new market? And so within these bad news, is just news that we have to deal with as entrepreneurs. Don't be the person that literally gives off that vibe like, I don't want to hear it. If you're the person that like walks around like, and everyone's like, I don't want to tell him. I don't want to tell her. She's going to freak out. It's going to ruin her day. And then she's going to be mad at the Christmas party and blah, 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 blah. And then it's going to be Debbie Downer all week. And, if you're that person, you don't invite change. You don't invite opportunities. And again, that person is an ostrich. You don't want to hear the bad news, so you put your head in the sand. You don't put your head in the sand, but you act like you're putting your head in the sand to everybody else because you don't want to hear it. If you're that person, you have to change. Your company, literally, trust me, has all kinds of issues that you don't know about because people are afraid to bring you what you perceive as bad news. If you welcome it and say, guys, it's just news. Bring it to me. I want to know. And then we'll deal with it together. It's going to be remarkable, the growth and the change that you're going to see in your organization. Please just take a minute to subscribe. And also, if you get a chance, forward it on to your friends, any budding entrepreneurs that could use the help. I'm Devon. This is Whiteboard Entrepreneur.